Yo guys, we are back and today we will build a Twitter token hunter. Last time we created a Twitter page tracker or profiles tracker where we checked also the posts posted by certain profiles. Today we will check if these posts actually contain CAs or token mints, and we will also check if there is new CAs posted on Twitter. So that's what we will build today, and if you think that is interesting, leave a like to the video, and if you have questions, like always, put them in the comments. I will do my best to come back to them and answer them as soon as possible. But if you want these questions answered quicker, then you should go to our Discord, because we have a lot of cool people there. We talk about token snipers, token hunters, wallet trackers, all this cool stuff. We also have bot streams there. So if you're not there yet, I will leave the link in the description and I hope to see you there. Alright guys, before I jump into the code, I want to go over a quick overview of how a token hunter for Twitter could work. So our script will run a main function that will run every X amount of seconds. And the first time it will run, we will use Discord.js to make sure that our bot is online. So we can initialize a bot connection for a certain channel using Discord.js, and that we will do the first time the script runs. So the first time it runs, we make sure our bot is online, and then we will continue. So the next thing we need to do is get the accounts that we want to follow. Now, this bot has two modes. We can or follow certain accounts and see if they post CAs, or we can look for newly posted CAs using the search timeline on Twitter. And that's what we will specify here in our config.ts. So, or we return these accounts that we want to follow, or we return that we want to check the search timeline on Twitter and extract the tweets from that. So that's what we will do here. So let's say that we want to follow certain accounts. For that, we will move on and spin up a virtual browser using Puppeteer. Now, you can also use the API from Twitter, but if you want an alternative, you can use this virtual browser from Puppeteer. Using this virtual browser, this time we will use a request interception. And what that means is once you load the browser page for a certain account, a lot of requests will come to you. And we will intercept these requests and check them one by one. And we will look for a specific request which hold all the user tweets or all the tweets for a certain search timeline. So that's what I said here. There is two modes. Or we follow accounts, or we check the search timeline in Twitter. But nevertheless, we will try to intercept a request that holds these tweets on the page or on the search timeline. It doesn't matter. So once we got this request intercepted, then we move on. And if we have this request, that will contain all the tweets. So when we do have all these tweets from these requests that came back, we can check these tweets one by one. And then we can see if a tweet that we are looking at already exists in our database or if it's a new tweet. And that we do for all the tweets. So if it's a new tweet, which means it's not in our database yet, then we move on. And we will check if this tweet has a CA or a token mint. And if it has a CA or a token mint, then we will create an embedding in Discord.js. And that embedding we can send via the Discord API to our bot to then display in Discord. So that's what we do here. So if we have a CA, we just output it in Discord, or you could output it in a log. It doesn't matter. We just want to make sure that this tweet that we are looking at has a CA. Now, if it's a new tweet, then we also want to store it in our database. So next time, if we come by this tweet again, then we can see like, hey, this tweet we already have. We don't have to do anything. Now, if it doesn't have a CA, then we just move on to the next tweet as well. But we still want to save it because next time when we see this tweet, we don't want to check it. We don't want to do anything. We know we already handled it. So that's what we do here. And that's how a Twitter token hunter can look like. Alright, so before we jump into the code base, I want to show you what we will build. And as I said, this bot has two configs or two modes. And in the config, you can choose which mode you want to run. So there is user tweets and search timeline. So for the first thing, we will try the search timeline. And here you can actually specify what you want to search for. So this is actually the query. And you can also ignore accounts. So let's say that in the search timeline there is accounts that post CAs or mints all the time, but they don't have much value, then you can add these accounts here. So that's what we will run first. And to run this, you can just type npm run bot Twitter. And that should start the bot, and also make sure that it is connected to Discord. So you can see it's ready for use. Discord is connected, and here it is checking all the CAs that are posted on the search timeline. And if it returns something, then it will store it in our database and also send it in Discord. And I have a test channel here where I can show you how that looks. And here you can see that this was tweeted 1 minute ago, and here we have the CA. And we also have a bit of information about the account, when it was created, the follower count, and if it has a blue check. And then you can also click on these buttons here to go through the websites like GMGN or Nova straight away. So that's the first mode. So we can also use another mode, as I said, and we can use, for example, user tweets. And for that, we have specified accounts. And I have specified one account here that I know that holds a CA. So if you do the same thing here now, we run this comment, then it will look for CAs for this certain Twitter account. So again, it connected the bot and it's ready to talk. So now we are searching this account to see if there's any tweets, and there are tweets, but only one tweet with a CA was found. And if you look here again, then you'll see that this account, of course, it's now 3 days ago, that this account tweeted this CA, and then the same thing, an overview of the tweet. And again, when the account was created, if it has follower count, and of course how much, and if it has a blue check. So in this case, yes. So if you could capture these kind of tweets really quick, this can be valuable. And of course, we can attach token analysis to this once we have the actual token. But that's how the tracker for Twitter looks right now. And that's what we will build in this video. All right, so once we start this comment npm run bot Twitter, it will start this function here called main. And main, once that runs, it starts this function here. It's called main. So first thing it will do is start our Discord bot. So remember, if you look at this overview, the first time we run this function, we want to make sure that our Discord bot is started. And that's what we will do here. By using Discord.js, we will make sure our Discord bot is actually started. And once it's started, then you will see that it is online here. That's important because we will use this connection for outputting our tweets that contain a CA. So that's the first thing we do here. And we can check if it's the first time that we run this by looking at these two values, Discord client and bot channel, because by default, they are set to null. And if we have them initialized, because that's the first thing we do here by using initialize Discord, once this is initialized, these two values, they will be set. And Discord initialization is just done by creating a Discord client using new client. Then we provided some intents to make sure that it can talk and receive messages. Then we try to log in using this bot via the bot token. And once it is logged in, then we listen for a ready event. And then we also output like, hey, the bot is now connected. And once the bot is connected, these two constants, they will be set. So next time that we run main, as you can check if here, if it's empty, it will not be empty. And then we skip the initialization. So then our bot will be online and we will be able to use these two constants to output our messages into Discord. That's the first thing that we do here. So once the bot is initialized, then we continue. And the first thing we want to do is checking which mode we are running this bot in. Just remember, we can run it in two modes. We can check for certain accounts, and we can also check for the search timeline. And that's what we do here. And that is also specified in our config, as I showed before. Config, you can set the mode, and that is just the thing that we try to fetch here. And if no mode is found, then it will always fall back on user tweets. And also here, we check if there is no tracking mode, then we will also fall back on user tweets to make sure that we also always have a mode. So then we have two ifs, and if we use user tweets mode, then we go here, and if we use the other mode, then we will use this. Now, both modes, they are actually the same in the sense of how they handle the tweets that come back and check for the CA and then output it in Discord. The only difference is the way that they will get the user tweets from the requests that will be returned. But I will explain you in a minute what I mean by that. And if none of these modes are set, then we will output a message that it's not tracking CAs. But this should never be the case because we have a fallback, which is always user tweets. So let's first check the mode user tweets. And what we do here is pulling in all the accounts that we want to look for. And these are also stored in our config file. And these are the accounts that we want to look for who has like CAs or not. So we only have one account for now, and this is the handle. So once we have the accounts, then we will loop through all these accounts to check if that account has published or posted tweets with CAs. So the first thing we do is create a constant to store our messages in for the tweets that will be returned. Next, we check if these accounts that we will loop through have a name and a handle. And this just refers to name handle here. Just remember, we are looping through every account that we have specified. And if there is no name or handle, then we go to the next. But if we have a name and a handle, then we move on. And then just output like, hey, we are checking posts now for this account. So the next thing we do is trying to get the posts for this account. And for that, we have a separate function called getXAccountLatestPosts, and we provide the name and the handle here. And this function is actually just specified up on top here. So we can have a look at that. The first thing it does is checking if we receive the name and a handle, and if not, it will return an empty array. And if we receive that, then we will initialize a browser. And initializing a browser is just setting up a virtual browser that we will use to go and get these tweets. And it says init browser here, and this function is set up here on top. And what this will do is just creating a virtual browser based on a few parameters that we provide, like do we want to run it headless? Where is the execution path? This just means what browser do you want me to use? And also some other options for how the browser should show up, like maximized or not. And these settings are also available in config here, the default browser, and this just refers to Chrome. So it knows that it needs to run Chrome. That's really important. So once the browser is initiated, so we have a browser now, then we can move on. And we also create a, like a constant, or a let in this case, to store the tweets in that we get back. The first thing we do is, once we have our browser initiated, creating a new page. And then for that page, we will say like, hey, set request interception to true. And what this does is actually taking all the requests that being returned once we visit a page, and it will intercept these, just as the word it says, and it will only continue if we instruct it to do so. And these requests, these are actually the requests that I'm talking about. If you would load this page, you see that all these requests are coming in. So these are the requests that we are interfering with, or that we are looking for. If I load it again, then you can see all these requests are coming in here. And we are looking for a request called user tweets. Because user tweets, this is the request that holds all the tweets returned for this user. So that is what we will look for, user tweets. I will show you in a minute. So that's what we will do. We say, hey, we want to intercept these requests. If we have a request, then we want to continue, because remember, for every request, we want to check the response, and that's what we will do here. But for every request, we want to continue, because this option means that we will intercept these, but we also have to say continue to go to the next. Now, if we get these requests, then we also get a response from it. And that's what we check here first. So if the response is 200 or not 200 in this case, it means something went wrong, and then we return, which means we go to the next request. If we have a response, then we take the URL. And from the URL, we want to see that it includes the user tweets. Remember, that's what I said here. This is the request, the URL, it contains user tweets. And that's what we are looking for here. If it doesn't contain user tweets, again, we return and we go to the next request because we are iterating through these requests. If it does contain user tweets, then we know we got the right request and we can move on. Again, we create a body to store our response in, and we have a type for that, which we specified here under types. If you click on it, you can see this type actually mimics or reflects the actual response that we get back here. So this response, we have a type for that. So it's really easy for us to go into this object that we got returned here, and we can actually go through every value that we need. And that's the power of TypeScript, because we can specify types. So that's what we do here. That's why we say that this body has this type. So if we got a response back, then we move on. And the first thing we want to do is check if we got instructions, because for this type, if we would look at the instructions, and I need to look now where that is. Instructions, yeah, instructions is here. This is important to have certain values, because this instructions array will contain our tweets. So that's what we are looking for here. Like, do we have instructions, and do we at least one instruction? Because if we don't have instructions, then we also move on. We don't do anything. So if we do have instructions, then we look for a certain type for instruction. And the type that we need to have is timeline at entries. And we can see if we can find that here. Of course, we cannot see it in the types here, but instructions, there will be certain types here. Type, you can see. And this is an array, and it will have certain types, but one of them will be timeline at entries. And if you want, we can look here. You see, timeline at entries. That's what we will look for. And this is the one that we need to look for. As you can see here, there is timeline clear cache, but that's not what we want. We want the timeline at entries. That's the one that we are looking for. And that's what we are trying to filter out here with this logic. So once we find timeline at entries from our response, we move on. And then we will just loop through all these timeline entries, because these are actually the tweets. And then we pull out the entry ID or the tweet ID, the sort index, and we will also pull out other information that we are interested in. And this is the type name, which probably is tweet when it's created, the tweet text, the account size, like how much account since, it's like when the account was created, the follower count, if it's a verified account, and the image URL. And all these are stored within this object, remember? And we can really easily loop through all these values because we have a type for it, and we know that we are looking at the right value within the response that we got back. Because the type that we specified here will help us with that. So we see we don't have any errors. Then we will take all these information that we extracted from the tweets, we create a constant object for that, and then we push it to our tweet entries array, the one that we specified here on top. Those tweet entries will also be returned. That's what we do here. So now we got all these tweets for this handle returned to us, and we store them in tweet entries. And if we have tweets returned, then we move on. But if nothing has returned, which means smaller than 1, then we continue, which means in this case, we just, we will wait till main starts again. So in this case, it actually means we will go to the next account. And if there is no next account, then we will wait till main starts again. So if we have tweet entries, which means we receive tweets, then the next step we will do is loop through all these tweets. And here we will extract the tweet ID. And based on that tweet ID, we will check in our database if we already have it. And for that, we have also a separate function. And this is stored in our database file. And the function that we use for that is select post exists by ID. And based on that ID that we provided, we will just check in our database, do we already have this post? That's important to know, because if we already have that post, that means we already handled it and we don't have to look at that. So if it exists, then we continue. We go to the next tweet. If it doesn't exist, it means it's a new post and we can check it. And the first thing we need to check is, does this post contain a CA? And to check that, we use a regex. And this regex specifies a certain format. And we know certain, like a mint, is always a certain format. And this regex looks for that. So what we can do then is matching the tweet text against this regex, and that will return if there is a, let's say, a CA in that text or a token mint, it will store it into matches. And that's what we check here. Like, do we have a match? Do we have a CA? Yes. Then we store it in this constant here. So that's important. And then we store all that information that comes back from this tweet, because remember, we are looking at all these tweets, and we store it in another object called tweet entry, because this object we will also save. Because remember, it's not in our database yet, because if it was, we continued to the next tweet, but it was not, so we move on. We check if there is a CA, and then we take all this information, store it in a constant, and that constant we will also store in our database. But before we store it in our database, we want to send it to Discord, and that's what we do here, if there is a CA found. And again, if the CA is found, then we push it to our Discord messages array, and that's what we do here. And after that, we insert the post. And for that, we also have a separate function, insert post, where we will just get the entry here. We extract all the information from it, and we store it in our database. So that's what this logic do here in our database file. So if we looped through all the tweets and we stored messages in our Discord messages constant for the tweets that have a CA, then we can move on. And here we just check, do we have a bot channel? Which means, is our bot initialized? After the first run, second run, we just need to make sure we have a bot channel. And do we have Discord messages? Which means in this case, did we return tweets that actually have a CA or a token mint in them? If that's the case, then we move on, and then we also log out like, hey, for this account, we found or collected this amount of tweets that have a CA. And what we will do then is just have a function here, send message on Discord. We provided the bot channel that we want to send it in and the messages. And this function is stored in Discord send. And what this will do is just take all these messages that we stored and loop through all of them. And for each message, we will extract the information. Remember, it was the tweet entry that we send it. We take all this information and then we do some checks. Is this a verified account? Yes or no? We also convert dates into human readable formats, or in this case, how long it was ago that the tweet was created, how long it was ago that the account was created. That we do with this logic here. And for that, we use a library called datefns. And this just turns a date into, for example, 1 minute ago or account created 3 years ago. That's what we do with this logic. Then we create the Twitter URL, And this is just the handle and the tweet ID, which we create here. And then we move on. We also have two checks to see if the Twitter URL and the image URL that was returned is valid. And if that's the case, then we move on. We create our Nova links, the GMGN link and the DEX link. And this is just a link that will be clickable with the token mint that was been found. Then we create an embed. And an embed is just a card. I can show you what I mean here in one of our channels. An embed is just a nice card that we show here. So we create an embed or an embedding. That's what we do here. We take all this information, we create a nice embedding, and then this embedding that has been created, we send it to Discord via this bot channel that we provided. Using the send method, we say it's an embedding, we provide our embedding, and if it was successful, we log out, tweet has been sent to Discord. That's the function for sending these messages to Discord. So if we have sent this message to Discord, then we move on. We have a random wait time here. And if this is all done, then we move on. And again, we will trigger the same function within a certain amount of time. And the time is also specified here in config. That's the tracker timeout. It's set to 15 seconds now. So after that, we will just trigger main once again, and it will go and check and do the same logic all over again. Now, if we would use the search timeline function, the logic is totally the same. But instead of using the accounts and go through all the accounts to check, we will use the search timeline in Twitter. And I can show you what I mean. If we are, for example, in Twitter here, and we will look for CA plus pump, let's say, then we will get back a lot of information. You see, tweets with CAs in it. And also this will return a request with these tweets in here, but now it's called user tweets, for example. Or if I can remove this, let's see what it's called. Search timeline. So this, instead of looking for user tweets, we use search timeline. But again, the response will be the same as with the user tweets. It's just called different, these requests. And I can show you what I mean. If we would use this function here, instead of the latest post, we use the search timeline. It's the same logic, but here we look for search timeline instead. And then it's all the same. We just look for a different object or a different response based on the search timeline or based on the accounts that we're looking at. So that's how a token hunter for Twitter could work. And again, I suggest that you use the Twitter API because then you don't have to think about rate limits, etc. Now, it's not illegal to do work with a virtual browser. It's just you can think of it as an alternative to test things. But ideally, you would use the Twitter API because you don't have to think about rate limits. You have always the right information. But if you don't have the capacity to use the Twitter API, then you can use something like this to Puppeteer to use a virtual browser. But just be mindful, don't spam the platform that you want to use this on, because then accounts, they can get flagged. And so again, don't do it with your own account. Maybe have a separate account to test this out. And just don't spam the platforms, do it mindful, have enough time in between, and then you will be fine. But again, I suggest use the Twitter API if you can, and then you will also have more accurate data. But that's it for now. That's how the tracker for CAs on Twitter works. I hope you think this was helpful, and if you do, leave a like to the video. And again, if you're not in Discord yet and you have questions, the link will be in the description, and I hope to see you there. With that said, that's it for today. I'll see you in the next one.